Shadows of the Night Zoo, Part 1, The Whispering Menagerie. Working at a zoo during the day is an experience filled with laughter, awe, and the occasional scare from a curious animal. But at night, when the sun dips below the horizon and the visitors vanish, the zoo transforms into a realm of eerie shadows and unsettling whispers. I used to think working the night shift at the zoo would be a breeze. After all, who would be afraid of a few caged animals in the dark? But as I soon discovered, it wasn't the animals that kept me awake at night, it was the secrets lurking in the depths of the zoo after hours. My first night on the job started like any other. The sun had set, casting long shadows across the deserted pathways. The only sounds were the occasional hoot of an owl and the rustling of leaves in the wind. I made my rounds, checking locks and ensuring all the enclosures were secure. As I passed by the lion exhibit, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I glanced up at the towering walls, half expecting to see a pair of glowing eyes staring back at me. But there was nothing but darkness. Shaking off my unease, I continued on my patrol. But with each step, the silence seemed to grow thicker, pressing in on me from all sides. It was as if the very air itself held its breath, waiting for something to happen. Then, from the depths of the zoo, I heard it, a soft, whispered voice, barely audible over the rustling leaves. At first, I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but as I listened closer, I realized the voice was real. It seemed to be coming from the primate house, where the monkeys and apes slept soundly in their enclosures. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should investigate. But curiosity got the better of me, and I crept towards the building, heart pounding in my chest. The closer I got, the clearer the whispers became. It was as if 100 voices were speaking at once, their words blending together into an incomprehensible murmur. I reached the entrance to the primate house and pushed the door open slowly, the hinges creaking in protest. Inside, the darkness was almost suffocating, broken only by the dim glow of emergency exit signs. I took a hesitant step forward, straining my ears for any sign of movement. But all I heard was the sound of my own breathing, loud and ragged in the silence. Then, from somewhere deep within the building, I heard it again, the whispering, like a chorus of ghosts haunting the halls. I followed the sound, my heart pounding in my chest, until I reached the main exhibit. What I saw there will haunt me for the rest of my days. The monkeys and apes were awake, their eyes shining in the darkness as they clustered together in the center of the enclosure. But they weren't making a sound. Instead, they were staring up at something I couldn't see. And then, as if in response to some unseen signal, they began to chant, a low, guttural sound that sent shivers down my spine. I watched in horror as they swayed back and forth, their movements synchronized like dancers in a macabre ballet. And that's when I saw it, the shadowy figure standing at the edge of the enclosure, its form barely visible in the darkness. It was tall and slender, with long, spindly limbs that seemed to stretch on forever. Its eyes gleamed with an otherworldly light, and as I watched, it reached out a hand towards the nearest ape. I wanted to scream, to run as far away from that place as I could. But something held me rooted to the spot, unable to tear my eyes away from the scene unfolding before me. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the chanting stopped. The monkeys and apes fell silent, their eyes closing as they settled back down to sleep. And the shadowy figure vanished, melting back into the darkness like a wisp of smoke. I stumbled backwards, my mind reeling with disbelief. What had I just witnessed? Was it some kind of hallucination, brought on by the darkness and the silence of the night? But deep down, I knew the truth. There was something in that zoo, something ancient and malevolent, lurking in the shadows and waiting to be unleashed. And as I fled from the primate house, the whispers followed me, echoing in my mind like a sinister promise of things to come. Shadows of the Night Zoo, Part 2, The Keeper's Secret. After the unsettling encounter at the primate house, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that lingered in the air. But I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination running wild, that there was a rational explanation for what I had seen. But as the nights passed, the whispers grew louder, and the shadows seemed to press in closer with each passing hour. I found myself dreading the moment when the sun would dip below the horizon, plunging the zoo into darkness once more. It was during my third night on the job that I stumbled upon the first clue, a faded photograph tucked away in the corner of the staff room. It showed a group of zookeepers, smiling and posing in front of the primate house. Intrigued, I studied the photo closer, searching for any hint of the shadowy figure that had haunted my dreams. But there was nothing out of the ordinary, just a group of ordinary people going about their jobs. But then, as I looked closer, I noticed something odd about one of the figures in the background, a man with dark hair and piercing eyes, staring straight at the camera with a look of barely concealed malice. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized who it was, the head zookeeper, Mr. Sinclair. He had always struck me as aloof and distant, but I had never suspected him of any wrongdoing. But now, as I looked at the photograph, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Mr. Sinclair than met the eye. And as the whispers grew louder, I became convinced that he held the key to unlocking the secrets of the zoo. Determined to uncover the truth, I began to dig deeper, searching for any information I could find about Mr. Sinclair and his past. But the more I searched, the more elusive he seemed, like a shadow slipping through my fingers. And then, one night, as I made my rounds, I stumbled upon a hidden doorway tucked away behind the primate house. It was small and unassuming, easily overlooked in the darkness. Curiosity piqued, I pushed open the door and stepped inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The air was thick with dust and the smell of decay, and I could hear the faint sound of dripping water echoing in the darkness. I moved forward cautiously, my hands trembling as I reached out to explore the darkness. And then, as my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I saw it, the entrance to a hidden chamber, hidden away from prying eyes. With a sense of mounting dread, I stepped inside, the darkness swallowing me whole. And there, in the flickering light of a single candle, I saw him, Mr. Sinclair, his eyes gleaming with a malevolent light as he turned to face me. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "There are things in the zoo that are best left undisturbed." But I refused to back down, my fear outweighed by my determination to uncover the truth. And as I confronted Mr. Sinclair, I realized that the secrets of the zoo ran deeper than I could have ever imagined. Shadows of the Night Zoo, Part 3, The Dark Pact. Mr. Sinclair's words sent a shiver down my spine, but I refused to let fear paralyze me. I had come too far to turn back now, and I was determined to uncover the truth behind the mysteries of the zoo. As I confronted him in the dimly lit chamber, I could see the tension coiled in his muscles, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. But I stood my ground, demanding answers. "What is this place?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper in the oppressive silence. Mr. Sinclair's lips curled into a cold smile, sending a chill down my spine. "This is where the true power of the zoo lies," he said cryptically. "But it is not something that can be easily explained." I pressed him further, refusing to be deterred by his evasive answers. And slowly, reluctantly, he began to speak. He told me of a dark pact made long ago, when the zoo was nothing more than a fledgling attraction struggling to survive. In a moment of desperation, the founders had made a deal with forces beyond their comprehension, trading their souls for the success of the zoo. But the price of their greed was steep, and over the years, the zoo had become a breeding ground for darkness and corruption. Mr. Sinclair himself had been drawn into the fold, his own soul tainted by the malevolent forces that lurked within the shadows. I listened in horror as he spoke, my mind reeling at the implications of his words. Could it be true? Had the zoo truly been built on a foundation of darkness and deceit? But even as doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind, I knew that I couldn't turn away from the truth. I had to confront the darkness head-on, no matter the cost. With a newfound determination, I demanded to know more about the shadowy figure in the primate house, about the whispers that haunted my dreams, about the true nature of the zoo itself. But Mr. Sinclair's smile only grew wider, his eyes glittering with malice. "Some secrets are best left buried," he said ominously. "But if you insist on seeking the truth, then prepare yourself for what lies ahead." And with that, he vanished into the darkness, leaving me alone in the chamber with nothing but my own thoughts and the flickering light of the candle. As I stood there, trembling with a mixture of fear and anticipation, I knew that the journey I had embarked upon was far from over. The shadows of the night zoo held many secrets, and I was determined to uncover them all, no matter the cost. Shadows of the Night Zoo, Part 4: The Unseen Menace. With Mr. Sinclair's ominous words echoing in my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom that hung over the zoo like a dark cloud. But despite my fear, I was determined to uncover the truth, to unravel the mysteries that lurked in the shadows. As I continued my nightly patrols, the whispers grew louder, their words like a siren's call beckoning me deeper into the darkness. I found myself drawn to the places where the shadows gathered thickest, my footsteps guided by an unseen force. It was during one of these late-night excursions that I stumbled upon another clue, a tattered journal hidden away in the depths of the reptile house. Its pages were filled with cryptic symbols and arcane incantations, written in a language I couldn't understand. But as I flipped through the pages, a sense of unease washed over me. There was something dark and sinister about the journal, something that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. And then, as I reached the final page, my blood ran cold. There, scrawled in shaky handwriting, were the words, "Beware the darkness that lurks within the heart of the zoo, for it hungers for souls to feed its eternal hunger." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized the true nature of the threat that loomed over the zoo, a malevolent force, hungry for power and willing to do whatever it took to get it. But even as fear threatened to overwhelm me, I knew that I couldn't turn away. I had to confront the darkness head-on, to uncover the secrets that lay hidden beneath the surface. With a sense of grim determination, I set out to find answers, scouring the zoo for any clue that might lead me closer to the truth. But the more I searched, the more elusive the answers became, slipping through my fingers like smoke. And then, one night, as I made my rounds, I stumbled upon a hidden chamber nestled deep within the bowels of the zoo. It was small and cramped, barely more than a glorified closet, but as I stepped inside, I felt a sense of unease wash over me. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the walls were lined with strange symbols and sigils, their meanings lost to time. And in the center of the room, illuminated by the flickering light of a single candle, stood a figure cloaked in shadow. I felt my heart skip a beat as I realized who it was, Mr. Sinclair, his eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light as he turned to face me. "So, you finally found me," he said, his voice a low, menacing whisper. I wanted to run, to flee from this place and never look back. But something held me rooted to the spot, unable to tear my eyes away from the figure before me. And then, with a cold smile, Mr. Sinclair spoke the words that sent a shiver down my spine. "Welcome to the heart of the zoo," he said. "Welcome to your doom." Shadows of the Night Zoo, Part 5: The Ritual Unleashed. As Mr. Sinclair's chilling words echoed in the cramped chamber, I felt a surge of fear grip my heart like icy claws. I knew that I was standing on the precipice of something sinister, something that threatened to consume me whole. But despite the overwhelming sense of dread that washed over me, I refused to back down. I had come too far to turn away now, and I was determined to uncover the truth behind the darkness that lurked within the heart of the zoo. With a steely resolve, I faced Mr. Sinclair head-on, my voice steady despite the fear that gnawed at the edges of my mind. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, my words echoing in the oppressive silence. Mr. Sinclair's smile widened, his eyes glittering with malice. "You are the key," he said cryptically. "The key to unlocking the true power of the zoo." I felt a chill run down my spine at his words, but I refused to let fear paralyze me. Instead, I pressed him further, demanding answers. And slowly, reluctantly, Mr. Sinclair began to speak. He told me of the ancient ritual that had been passed down through generations of zookeepers, a ritual that promised untold power to those who were willing to pay the price. But the cost of the ritual was steep, a soul for a soul, a life for a life. And as Mr. Sinclair spoke of the horrors that had been unleashed upon the world by those who had dared to harness its power, I felt a sense of dread wash over me. I knew that I had stumbled upon something far more dangerous than I could have ever imagined, something that threatened to tear apart the very fabric of reality itself. But even as fear threatened to overwhelm me, I refused to turn away. I had to stop Mr. Sinclair, to put an end to the darkness that threatened to consume us all. With a sense of grim determination, I faced Mr. Sinclair once more, my voice steady despite the terror that pulsed through my veins. "I won't let you do this," I said firmly. "I won't let you unleash this darkness upon the world." Mr. Sinclair's smile faltered for a moment, his eyes narrowing in anger. But then, with a cold laugh, he raised his hand and began to chant the ancient incantation, his words echoing in the cramped chamber like a death knell. I felt a surge of panic grip my heart as I realized what he was doing, but it was too late. The ritual had already begun, its dark energy swirling around us like a vortex of despair. And as the darkness closed in around me, I knew that the battle for the soul of the zoo had only just begun. Shadows of the Night Zoo, Part 6, The Descent into Darkness. The ancient incantation filled the cramped chamber with a malevolent energy, sending shivers down my spine as I watched in horror. Mr. Sinclair's chanting grew louder and more frenzied, the words twisting and warping in the air like a cacophony of madness. I knew that I had to act fast, that I couldn't let Mr. Sinclair complete the ritual and unleash its dark power upon the world. With a surge of determination, I lunged forward, my hands reaching out to stop him. But before I could reach him, a wave of unseen force slammed into me, sending me crashing to the ground with a cry of pain. I struggled to rise to my feet, my muscles screaming in protest as I fought against the oppressive darkness that threatened to consume me. Mr. Sinclair's laughter echoed in the chamber, his eyes gleaming with triumph as he continued to chant the ancient incantation. I knew that I was running out of time, that I had to find a way to stop him before it was too late. With a desperate cry, I reached out for the candle that illuminated the chamber, my fingers closing around its flickering flame. With all the strength I could muster, I hurled the candle towards Mr. Sinclair, the flames erupting into a brilliant blaze. The sudden burst of light seemed to catch Mr. Sinclair off guard, his chanting faltering for a moment as he shielded his eyes from the glare. Seizing the opportunity, I lunged forward once more, my fists flying as I unleashed a barrage of blows upon him. But Mr. Sinclair was no ordinary man. As my fists connected with his body, I felt a surge of resistance, as if I were striking a solid wall of iron. And with a sudden burst of strength, he pushed me away, sending me sprawling to the ground once more. I struggled to rise to my feet, my body aching and battered from the onslaught. But even as the darkness threatened to overwhelm me, I refused to give up. I had come too far to turn back now, and I was determined to stop Mr. Sinclair at any cost. With a final burst of strength, I lunged forward once more, my hands closing around Mr. Sinclair's throat with a vice-like grip. With all the force I could muster, I squeezed, choking off his words and silencing the ancient incantation. For a moment, there was silence, a blessed respite from the madness that had consumed us. And then, with a final, desperate gasp, Mr. Sinclair collapsed to the ground, his body convulsing as he fought against the darkness that threatened to consume him. And as I watched in horror, I realized that the battle was far from over. The darkness that lurked within the heart of the zoo had been unleashed, and it would stop at nothing to destroy everything in its path. Shadows of the Night Zoo, Part 7, The Final Confrontation. As Mr. Sinclair lay writhing on the ground, the darkness swirling around him like a tempest of despair, I knew that I had to act fast. The fate of the zoo, and perhaps even the world, hung in the balance, and I was the only one who could stop it. With a sense of grim determination, I staggered to my feet, my muscles protesting with every movement. But I refused to let the pain and exhaustion deter me. I had come too far to turn back now, and I was determined to put an end to the darkness once and for all. As I faced the swirling maelstrom of darkness that threatened to consume us all, I felt a surge of fear grip my heart like icy claws. But I refused to let it paralyze me. With a deep breath, I reached deep within myself, drawing upon a wellspring of courage and determination. And then, with a primal scream, I launched myself forward, diving headfirst into the heart of the darkness. The shadows writhed and twisted around me, their tendrils reaching out to ensnare me in their grasp. But I fought back with every ounce of strength I possessed, refusing to let them drag me down into the abyss. With a final burst of effort, I reached out towards the source of the darkness, a swirling vortex of blackness that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. And as I drew closer, I felt a surge of power course through me, as if the very fabric of reality itself was bending to my will. With a primal roar, I plunged my hand into the heart of the darkness, my fingers closing around its core with a vice-like grip. And then, with a burst of blinding light, I ripped it free from its moorings, sending waves of energy cascading outwards in all directions. For a moment, there was silence, a blessed respite from the chaos that had consumed us. And then, with a deafening roar, the darkness collapsed in on itself, imploding into nothingness as if it had never existed. And as the last echoes of the darkness faded away, I collapsed to the ground, my body spent from the exertion. But even as darkness threatened to claim me, I knew that the battle had been won. The zoo was safe once more, its secrets buried deep beneath the earth where they belonged. As I lay there, battered and bruised, I knew that I would never forget the horrors I had witnessed, nor the darkness that had threatened to consume us all. But I also knew that I had emerged from the darkness stronger than ever, a beacon of light in a world consumed by shadows. And as I closed my eyes and let the darkness claim me, I knew that the nightmares of the night zoo would haunt me no more. The end.